G'day and welcome to Insights and Storytelling with me, Moon Willow. For those of you that have been with me for a while, I really appreciate it. But you may well have noticed that in the past sort of 7 days, I've managed to miss 2 days, and I'm really sorry for that. On both occasions, I actually did sit down and try and connect in with the energies. I thought I had. And at the end of it, on several occasions, I discovered that for all that the audio actually recorded, the imagery didn't. And what I have noticed over time in doing these is that if the information, the storytelling is not to do with this group, and sometimes it's a case that I feel that I've spoken, or on reflection, I've spoken about something that may not actually be ready to come out yet. And sometimes it's difficult to discern which energies I'm actually linking into, and who those stories are actually pertaining to. And sometimes that's for me. So the energies hijack, and I end up telling myself a story for a period of time, which is fine, and I get enjoyment out of it. But then I get slightly frustrated because I try and upload it onto YouTube, and where I've spoken for like 25 minutes or so, only 6 minutes, 8 minutes, sometimes 14. There's no rhyme nor reason to it as far as I can ascertain, other than it's not meant to be put up onto YouTube. I am hoping today that this one actually records all the way through, and that I'm able to put something out for everybody. And I really appreciate, I can't express how much I really appreciate that there are those of you out there that are actually gaining benefit from me sitting here telling these stories. But I do believe I'm going to have to drop the daily insights. We can still stick with insights, but with the way, and I get a sense as well that a lot of that is to do with frequency shifts, and someone hijacking. Well, in a way it is. It's almost like, when you're putting, in the old days when we put the telly on, and or even now, if we've got too many people trying to watch something at the same time, or trying to tune into the telly, and we get that what's the word I want, static, that's it. So it's almost like partway through there's some sort of static energy that comes in and disrupts the recording of it. It's the only way I can really explain it, because I sit in the same spot, I smudge the cards and the crystals before I start, and I have no real sense about what I'm going to talk about, or where the storytelling is going to go. It surprises me as much. It's as new to me as it will be to you in watching it or just listening to it. So that's the only way that I can really describe it, is that at the moment especially, that as we're getting that higher light frequency coming in, and then the kickback from the lower energies, that it doesn't match up, and has that disruptive element when I'm trying to record all the way through. So that's a very long-winded explanation for not putting a storytelling out yesterday. But there was a key element in yesterday's that I am going to bring back up, and that is around energy, and that sort of goes with the flow of whatever I've already been speaking about is that I think at the moment, I can really feel, and I'm struggling personally to balance having 2 feet. I mean, I had that in my head earlier today, is having 2 feet in 2 different worlds at the minute. And for various reasons, I've started working, and so that puts a limit on the time that I'm actually within my own home to put one of these together, which is why, although I've managed on a couple of days to record 2 or 3 times, with it not recording all the way through according to YouTube, I've run out of linear time to actually redo it and put it out. So I'm having that, I'm personally having that balancing problem going off, and I get a sense that I'm not alone in this, that most of us have to juggle and try and figure out how to step into different camps without being stretched to our absolute limits. And if we're focusing on sort of lower energy things or third dimensional things, and getting caught up with the media, etc., and the very basics of paying bills, and it is important stuff. I'm not saying that it isn't, but we can become too focused on that, and then within doing that, we almost miss, well, not almost, more often than not, we miss the synchronicities that are happening. And there's been a couple of times recently when I've not particularly wanted to go out to work, and had the universe intervened for me and enabled me to have some downtime and nurturing. So it felt like elements out there were really nurturing and supporting me in what I needed to do. So by the same token, I really feel that for whatever reason, that those storytellings that I did were not meant to go out into the ether properly, that they needed to just sort of stay here, really. I'm hoping this makes sense. I really do. But within that as well, it's so a lot of it is sort of really nurturing ourselves within that, and it's simple things I find. I mean, I just washed my hair this morning, and that just made me feel better, sort of physically and energetically. It was like I washed everything, and I allowed, while I was having that shower, to actually imagine that the shower and the water was actually cleansing all my energetic fields at the same time. So I do feel that that's sort of like a necessary part of how we need to negotiate and navigate sort of the energies over the next couple of weeks. I've noticed that apparently it's 21 days until the end of 2020. So that being said, there's only 11 days until the 21st of December. And I'm not sure, I get a sense that there is something big coming up, and it's really rocky and going to be difficult to traverse and navigate, sort of more choppy waters. And it's not waters, it's the energies and the energetic shifts. But I don't know how much of that is actually real, or how much, because there's been a lot of talk about it, whether that's actually creating it. Because if we're creating the world that we live in, and we're manifesting aspects of ourselves to deal with, and putting that into the world and the environment around us by the people that we meet, as I was saying the other day, if we've got that bubble and protectiveness, we can tend to flow more easily through the world and not be impacted by the other narrative. But if that's true, and our energy helps create the world that we, as we experience it, if we're not necessarily buying into it, but if we're focusing so much on this huge energetic shift coming in, and I know there is an energetic shift coming in, but it could go two ways. It could be that we end up helping create it to be bigger than it needs to be, or equally, we could have a sense of, is that all it's about? My sense as well around it all is that it's not going to be a damp squib. It's going to be very significant, and there is going to be almost like a tilting and off kilter. But the actual impact of it is actually going to take a while for it to settle. So very much like the last full moon, which I think was about a week and a half ago. I've lost track of linear time. That the full moon takes 3 days, but it's like, yes, the veils came back, the curtains came back, but it's almost like they got closed again very quickly. But it's going to continue working, so it's going to continue taking the veils back. It's going to continue to things are going to continue to come to light. It's not all going to happen in one go. And for all that, on a very deep energetic level, especially in regards to Earth, on the 21st of December, there is going to be a huge shift. But us as beings on the planet, I don't know how impacted we're actually going to be, and I think we can choose the level that we get impacted by it. So again, by having a sense of our energetic boundaries and really noticing how far out they all are, and connecting into Gaia, and having our protective cover, our protective shield around us, and by being aware that these shifts are occurring, it hopefully will help us be less impacted or less sent off kilter by what's coming in. And by that, really connecting to Earth, and being linked as well and available to the universal energies at the same time, because that is a supportive level as well. And also by doing things like having a shower and really linking into that is cleansing your energetic aura at the same time, and your energy. So anything that's negative, anything negative that's been attracted that doesn't belong to you, can actually just wash straight through, as opposed to clinging around. So we'll see which chakra wants to be spoken with. I was going to say two, but that doesn't feel right. Wants to express itself. Okay, so express itself, and then I ended up with Solidite landing in my hand at the same time. I'm noticing that I'm getting into more shadow as well. It's not that late in the day really, but it's getting very overcast out there. So the Solidite expressing, so very much throat. And within that, and what I've just been saying as well, I feel very strongly that it's very much being aware of our internal communication, and how we manifest. And I am noticing that things are it's a lot easier to manifest aspects and things into our lives, and just to support us and to keep us going. But equally, the way we've got to be aware of our thoughts and our underlying unconscious self. So it's like, if we're feeling that things are going too right, we could then start to question that and attract in for something going wrong that could end up tripping us up. But it's very much it is very much being aware of the power of our own voice, because our voices are incredibly powerful, and it's not just the verbalization, it is the internal voice, that inner voice. And more often than not, we switch off to that. We get so used to having thoughts going off in the background that we don't tend to pay attention to them. Every now and again, we'll get a stray thought that makes itself heard, that makes itself seen within. But most of the time, we get so distracted by day-to-day living that we're not aware of the underlying verbalization, the underlying chatter that actually does exist in all of us on a regular basis. And a lot of that comes to the surface when we're sleeping at night. And most people will notice that when they're meditating, that it's the thoughts that come up, and we're meant to just allow them to float by like clouds. I've never quite worked out how to do that, which is why I do guided meditations as opposed to just sitting. Unless I'm focusing on a candle, and that's a lot easier. And I'm very sorry I'm going off on one, but so it is being more aware of the underlying, I want to say prattle, and it almost is, it's almost like that chattering that goes off, and it becomes almost like a white noise. So it's very easy to dismiss it or not pay attention. But within that has its own power. And it's not until we actually sit and notice what's going off and what's coming in and the different interactions we have with other people, we may have a sense that it's putting us off kilter, but we're not really understanding why. And unless we take the time to really allow those thoughts to bubble up to the surface, we can't really deal with it. So it's very much that allowing, or just giving it that opportunity so that we can hear it and we can start to deal with it. And then also in how we're speaking with other people, and going back to, as I've said previously, that match up between the meta and the verbal communication. And oftentimes, if we haven't spent the time to really understand what's going off underneath, when we're communicating with people, we're firing out other information underneath without realizing. So it is, again, coming back within and really integrating and anchoring into ourselves, so that when we're communicating with other people, we really have that match up as well. But also sort of really being present with ourselves at the same time, and listening, really honest listening with ourselves at the same time. So on that note, we'll go to the cards. And energy on the cards for me, please. Thank you. And we'll split. And I think that pile. Whip. I'm really hoping this is recording properly today. So, the cards today are the Cross, Stork, and the Rider. So a lot of what's been going off over the past couple of weeks in the different communities has been very much, there has been a lot of talk about a lot of karma no longer existing, that's been cleansed through for us. But for some of us, we don't realize that it has, so we re-ask for that karma to come back, and thus make our lives a little bit more difficult than they need to be. So my feel around this is really Okay, so part of it is ancestors coming in and those that we've lost, really being around us, really supporting and nurturing us, and our higher self, but really connecting. So the other day, the one that went out was about the crown chakra. So very much about connecting up to source, connecting up to our higher selves, because they are there to protect us. And as I was saying earlier, it is difficult at the moment, because it's almost like we're having to live within two worlds, and it's really hard to separate. It's really hard to pick a side is coming through. But it isn't a case of that. It's trying to navigate the mundane from a higher vibrational level. And to do that, it's to actually communicate with our higher self, our ancestors, and actually have an honest conversation. And that's part of listening to that voice underneath, that chatter underneath, because a lot of that actually doesn't necessarily belong to us. It's stuff we've taken on from being very young, or slightly older as well. I mean, it doesn't have to be younger, but we end up in relationships and we end up taking on not so much the verbal but the non-verbal stuff that is given to us, and we end up incorporating that into that feeling of worthlessness or not good enough, that why do I think I'm powerful, why do I think I'm able to do this, and that sort of stuff. So it's bringing that to the surface and really looking at it and understanding where it comes from. And then, like with my shower earlier, is actually letting it wash through into Gaia to be transmuted. So as that goes through, we're letting go and really freeing our energy. But again, noticing where our energy goes, because it ends up being scattered. And the words that we use, especially those internal ones, that scatters it further than perhaps we're aware of. So really focusing back in, focusing where our energy is, and letting any of that negativity or the stuff that doesn't belong to us to wash through and go into earth. And then that brings me to the stalk. So the stalk is new beginnings. And it is having that new beginning. It is that real cleansing. So by being aware of the power within our words, the power within our thoughts, the power within our throat chakra, it's actually noticing that, being aware of that, and thus being able to speak into a new way of being. And it's like acknowledging that we do have bills to pay, and we have to put food on our table, and we have to look after ourselves on a mundane level, and then we have to negotiate a world that we don't necessarily want to negotiate. But by being aware of that and letting that filter through, we can equally start to change our thoughts and match up our unconscious self, our subconscious self, into our conscious level, and change the dialogue, change the thought process, change the chatter to actually more positivity. So again, focusing on the here and now and the brighter aspects, because I find that even in the darkest of times there is a light of some description, even if it's a case of me putting a candle on. But I got up early this morning and I saw a gorgeous sunrise, and then I noticed yesterday when I walked out that there was a robin, a blackbird, a starling, a magpie, and they all lifted my mood instantly. So it's actually utilizing those small things and allowing them to actually lift us up. And then we, instead of getting caught in the, oh, I need to pay this bill, I need to go do shopping, there's not enough time, why have I agreed to do this, I need to navigate the world that I don't really want to navigate through. I want to be somewhere else, I can't get there, and we can get caught up in that And that becomes quite dark and quite negative, and that can bring us down and actually instigates that sort of level of conversation within in taking us in that particular path. And that's a more darker, depressed, lower frequency aspect and way of being. Whereas if we acknowledge it, because if we ignore it or try and push it away, we lose too much energy and then we're more tired. So it's acknowledging it, letting it wash through, going into Gaia, letting it filter, so that we can notice the things like the birds, the sunrise, the connections we have with people, that soul journey, that soul family, and how that lifts us up. And that is stepping into that new beginning, that's stepping into that higher frequency, and actually perpetuating that particular cycle that nourishes and nurtures us. Which brings me to the last card, which is the Horserider. So sometimes this means being rescued or waiting for someone to rescue and moving quickly. And yes, so it is for me at the moment a couple of things. So this next 11 days is going to bring around shifts, and we can either move easily and quickly with that by just allowing ourselves to go with the flow, focusing on the positive, focusing on the higher frequency and that beautiful shift that's occurring, as opposed to buying into the negative energy, buying into the lower frequencies as they're going along. The other side of that as well is we have the ability, we have the key, we have the internal strength and wherefore to do this ourselves as well. And we can nourish and nurture ourselves. We have got the keys. It is lovely, and it is really important to recognize that there are people around to support us. And it is important that we do reach out at the same time, because we human beings are not meant to be isolated and not meant to be alone. And sometimes that's unavoidable, especially through the circumstances at this time. But it's also moving towards and taking that step towards other people that we know are going to nurture and meet us equally, not take over ourselves, not dish advice with no real understanding, that are actually going to hear us properly, fully, and actually meet us from a throat perspective, that they're going to actively listen and actively hear our concerns, so that when they communicate back, it is from that authenticity, it is from that connectedness. And I really feel that higher vibrational flow, for me, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm putting out to the universe to bring back in for me, is that as I go forward, the connections and the relationships I have with people are from that higher frequency, that they're not, the people aren't there to help, are not there to fix me, because I'm not actually broken. I have things that I haven't quite integrated yet, but I am okay as I am. And it's about learning that, and then by meeting people, by conversing, to having that honest dialogue, to having that honest communication from the throat chakra, which does incorporate proper listening and people being really present and supportive within that, so that we ourselves can actually figure out how to move forward. And sometimes it's good to get a bit of different information, so that we can actually start to dig through ourselves to move forward and take that trip ourselves. So we're in effect rescuing ourselves and moving ourselves forward, but we don't have to do that in isolation. And that's back with the sovereignty, being sovereign, but also being a part of a collective, being a part of a community, so that we can actually maintain our own identity, not having to change it for other people, but at the same time being a part of something larger than ourselves, so that we can move forward at that higher frequency. So I hope on several different things. I hope that A, this is recording all the way through. B, that this is making sense to people out there. And I really get a sense that that is what needs to come out so far today. So on that note, we'll find a note and see what energetic sound comes through to support our throat. And it is, our voices are really powerful, and even if it's singing along to a piece of music or just humming, but actually vocalizing helps clear and shift a lot of stuff in this area for us. And don't worry if you start coughing and clearing, because that is clearing, and it's the stuff that's been stuck back there. And it's a good way through humming, ohms, things like that. It's a good way to clear the back of the throat and just clear this throat chakra area as well, because we do hold a lot back, and we do end up damaging ourselves quite considerably if we don't allow our truth to come out. But again, we need to know our own truth first. It can't be put on us. We really need to have a sense and a feel what's true for us and how we would like to express ourselves authentically. So on that note, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. With a bit of luck, as I say, this has recorded. If it has, fantastic. I love you all, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Bye.